Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear us. We're coming in a little bit late, but we've had a few technical difficulties tonight. So we're get a few people here online, and then we'll get started. I want to introduce everybody to Megan Fraser. She is one of our project managers at Lionel. I'll give you the front row because this week's topic was actually Megan's idea, and thought this would be a fun one for the season to go over some ideas on Halloween. Halloween is one of Megan's favorite times of year, and as our project manager for accessories, among other things, she's responsible for a lot of the great Halloween-themed accessories, and of course all the other wonderful things that she's come up with over the last several years. And but these are definitely some of the ones that are most true to her heart. So tonight's idea was taking one of our regular houses and spooking it up a little bit and turning it into a haunted house. So we've each got one that we took from the office, and we've been working on them a little bit over the last week or so. And she's going to give you some ideas on some things she's done. I'm going to show you a few things I've been doing to mine. And then what we'll probably do is in a couple of weeks on Halloween, we've got the Ryan and Dave Halloween Spectacular, which is always good and scary. And we will, during that presentation, maybe we'll get back together again and show you the final results from both of our houses. So, Megan, why don't you talk a little bit about what gave you the idea for this, and then start talking about your house.
Sure. So, as you said, Halloween is my absolute favorite holiday. It's a big deal in our house here. So, of course, I had to choose one of my favorite accessories, the Fraser house, to go ahead and make it spooky for the Halloween season. Because I am an amateur, not someone who, decorates up or personalizes these houses myself, I wanted to start with a build up for me so that I didn't have to build the entire building. But the point of it was that you can take anything in our line and make it your own. It doesn't have to be a kit. You can absolutely take a built up house and turn it into something pretty amazing. So I said to Ryan, I want this to be a haunted house, but I also want it to feel like this is a house in your neighborhood. This is the spooky house down the street that everyone dares the kid to go up and ring the doorbell. So it's, not out of the realm of realism. So it's not super spooky, not scary for kids or anything. But something that, again, an amateur modeler or someone experienced like Ryan can take it to the next level. And he'll show you some techniques on how to do that. I took the approach of very simple, very easy to do and familiar things for myself to add to my model. So my hope is that, like Ryan said, we then come together and pull my ideas and put them onto his house later for the Halloween special that we always have.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Well, it looks like we've got a good group here on tonight already. Thank you to everyone who's been tuning in so far. And Megan, let's get started with yours since you've got the floor. Let me bring in your other spooky cam there with some of the things you've got going on. I'm going to try and minimize myself. Unfortunately, I have to leave my Workbench cam on just due to the microphone arrangement that we had here tonight. But let's try that out. That may work a little bit better for you.
So first I'll show you the house as I have it currently, and then I'll kind of break down the parts and pieces that I put together for it. So this is actually the first time Ryan's seen this, but wow. This is the house in its current state here. I was really inspired by a set of some figures that we had done previously. We pulled in a bunch of Lionel employees, and they came in their costumes, and our creative team took pictures of them, and we really used them as the models for the figures. So I have that pack here. And what I did was I pulled one figure out added her to the porch there. That's actually our Sadie's right there in a little witch costume. But I also took the other Halloween, the lawn figure pack here. And as you can see, there's some things missing in there. The tombstone there had the cat on the top of it. I cut it off and added it to the porch. I also took the pumpkins, and it was a grouping of pumpkins, but I cut them up and placed them strategically on the front porch there. And then what was meant to be a lawn ornament, what I did was added that, cut that up, and added it to the front porch. So again, just things that I didn't have to paint them. I didn't have to do anything other than glue them on there, really, besides cutting them up. Again, really easy for someone who's just starting out. I also, let's see if I can get in here. I created what is essentially a shadow box. Sorry, my lights are here. And there's a scene inside, and I'll show you all the parts and pieces. Inside the window here, it's got like a zombie guy in there, and in the background is a coffin that he's coming out of, and the headless lady in the window here. And the reason I created it as a shadow box was to give some depth and some excitement to the inside of that top story there. Now I did cut some little guys out as well in the window here, and you can kind of see the difference in the lighting because the light is inside the box, the other one, and this one's just inside the structure. And these are just our peel and stick lights. You get one of these with the Fraser house to kind of get you started in lighting your own buildings. But I just wanted to kind of show the difference here of going from just, adding something really small under the window versus, doing a cool scene in there. And so what I did, I'll back out here. These are all my parts and pieces and elements from what I created here. The first thing that I did was I took measurements of the top story here. And I created myself just a box, basically, that will fit right up inside the house. I want to say it was about 4.5 inches from the one side of the building to the other side as far as where the windows were concerned. And I took and created different layers of the scene and placed them within the box at varying depths to create let's see here, the shadow effect, again, to give it some depth. And then, kind of hard to show that. Basically, pull that out here. As each layer goes into that box and then fits within, I then added a hole and put my peel and stick light through it to kind of give it that shadowy effect in there. And you can create as many layers as you want. You can make the scene as detailed as possible. I messed around, getting started and plotting it out. I had chosen some different backgrounds and a little more detailed stuff. And I decided that maybe just more simplistic was better for me as I learned this technique. But this is something I've never done before, and it was fun to kind of play with the different depths of where those scenes were, so that the woman isn't pressed up against the window. She's kind of back within there. And I thought that was really fun. Another element I did was created like this banner on the front of the house that I could see someone decorating their front porch with. And really easy. Took some just craft twine and glued each individual pennant. Sorry, they're a little out of order there. I took every individual letter and glued them on there, and then affixed it to the house. I use just a simple cutting machine. It's a vinyl cutting machine. Lots of moms have them. Really fun and easy to do, but honestly, you could take a simple design and cut it with an X-Acto knife if you wanted. It doesn't have to be that detailed or precise. Again, we're not looking for perfection here. It is a haunted house. I also took and created, and this was one of the things I played around with for a while, was these birds on the gutters up there. Just again added that creepy aspect to the haunted house. Reminds me of the movie The Birds, and played around with different techniques on how to stick it in there. I tried epoxy, I tried glue. They all worked, but in different ways. I found that I liked the tacky glue better than like an epoxy or something. Super glue just was not malleable enough, not easy enough for me to sit and hold that there. I just used a regular tacky glue. Again, it's not a modeler's glue or anything. I just used what I had around, because again, I wanted this to really be something that was accessible to everyone.
But it's funny you say that, it wasn't a modeler's glue or normal modeling techniques, Megan. Your house looks absolutely amazing. I mean, this is the first time I've seen it, and I'm really blown away by what you were able to accomplish inside the house with these details. It really does look great. I mean, I've got my bottle of Aileen's tacky glue right here on my workbench too. So
all right,
give yourself a little bit of credit. So much of what we do here in this hobby and here at the workbench when we do these Wednesday nights is we take a lot of things that you already have around the house and apply those to our models to enhance them and make them different. And your shadow box idea for these interiors, if you're not a Halloween person and you're not doing a haunted house per se, that's okay. But I think there's a lot of things that could be done with that. My mind is on overdrive right now with other things that we could do with that sort of technique, and in simple interiors that don't cost a lot of money, but really add a lot of character to your scene. And even where you've used some pre-made things from our Lionel details, some simple modifications to them to help them fit your particular job at hand and ideas and dreams is what makes this hobby fun. So for someone who's being very humble about not having done any of this before and trying it for the first time, you've done an amazing job so far. And I think a lot of people will probably see that and agree that this is proof right here. You don't have to have been doing this for years and decades to have fun and to create something that's truly unique and memorable and yours. And that's what this hobby is really all about for all of us. So I love it. Yours is going in a very different direction than the way I started taking mine, but a combination of the two creates its own unique thing. If anybody who's watching has questions, please feel free to type them in, and we'll try and hit them for you to discuss the techniques that either Megan or I have used. That's what we're here for. We're happy to answer questions and help you along as you learn as well. Megan, what did for the shadow box itself? It looks like you're using sort of a card stock or a heavier material, and you laid all that out. I'm assuming with a couple simple measurements and the rulers, but I'd like to go back and just start there and see what did you use for materials and how did you draw it out and go from there?
Yeah, so this is again just white crafter cardstock, scrapbooking paper essentially, that you can find anywhere, Michael's, Amazon. I'm not a math girl, I'll tell you that is not my thing. But what I did take some measurements to make sure, obviously, that the box itself was going to fit in there. But it really was just a simple. You take let's see how I can set this up here. I took a regular box as inspiration, and basically you have, let's see if I can just build it on camera here. So large rectangle here. Then I cut and made tabs around the side. Hold on one second here. And honestly, I'm just using some tape to put this together, and that's all that's inside of mine now. So let me tape that, and I'll kind of come back to that camera. So I took the top two tabs, folded them over top of the box there. This lip here that's on the front here, I used that to affix it on the inside of the building. And then with the bottom here, that kind of completed the box there. And then again, I just layered each piece. So since I was blocking the back windows out with the box, I created some faux windows there so that it still gave the idea that there were windows in the back of the house. And then I took a second layer, and as you see this, there's a spider web hanging, the coffin there. And I took that and inserted it about midway of so in the middle of the box there. And actually,
okay, now you're gonna have to tell me, because I know you did not cut that spider web out by hand.
No,
so,
I used my
did,
cutting machine, because there's no way. I use a Cricut cutting machine. It's a Crafter's cutting machine. I use a program on my iPad called Procreate to create all of the spider webs and the designs and stuff like that. It's a really cheap version of something like a Photoshop or Paint Shop type thing, but only like $9.99. So I created all those files myself and then imported them to my cutting machine. So I drew everything that you see. And then lastly, my favorite layer, I was the lady with her holding her head up and the zombie guy there. I installed the LED light. I just poked a hole through the bottom of the cardstock there, and then placed it behind the coffin on the second layer so that you wouldn't see the bulb poking through when you look into the room. Trying to get, so you can't even see that it's in there. I used instead of a black cardstock, I used a blue so that it wouldn't suck up all the light, so that you could still see, some of the detail. And I really do like the hue that it casts with the light inside there. And again, you can get as detailed as you want. For my first time making something like that, I bit off more than I can chew at the beginning, and then reined myself back in and said, keep it simple. The KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. That's pretty much what I had to do here for myself but I think it came out really well. With the windows here, again, using my Cricut machine, cut these little guys here, and just, place them in the window. And again, you don't necessarily need a machine to do something like this. If you have a pair of scissors or an X-Acto knife and some drawing, even some, terrible drawing skills like I might have, I have to do everything digitally, you still can get the same effect. It doesn't, you don't have to be an amazing artist to cut out ghosts and shapes and stuff to put in those windows. Same thing with the birds there. I took strips, drew birds, and then so the strips here are kind of the base to set into the spouts here, and it really was able to, for me to, in the gutters, I should say, it was a good base for the glue to kind of stick on rather than trying to individually place each one of these birds. I did quite a few versions of them. Some were too large, some were too small. These ones seemed to be just right for what I was trying to bring across there. And then the banner shapes, which this I think was the most difficult for me, just because I have shaky hands. So putting each one of these little pennants and gluing them on there was a fun challenge, but I did enjoy doing it. So
I think it turned out wonderfully and shows very well another take on what you can do in the hobby, and with some techniques and some different things. If my wife is tuned in watching this, she may find me in her craft room a little bit more often now, going forward, stealing some of these Cricut things and ideas there, because there's so much potential. And to your point, you mentioned keeping it simple and not biting off more than you can chew. I think, especially when you're doing interior work, there's a lot of truth to that. No matter how detailed you want to get, sometimes less is more, because you want to create that illusion and that sense of something going on, but you can't really hyper focus on a lot of small details. So if you try and put a detailed wall and photorealistic interiors in there, sometimes what you end up doing is you just create this sort of collage of noise, and you don't really get to focus on the subject. So what you've done here with the silhouettes is really great, but taking it to that other level of adding some depth and adding some layers to it, as opposed to just sticking them on the back of the window, really does create that nice illusion for something going on inside the house. And simply, as you see there, changing the color of the background paper, what a difference that makes in the light effect that you see on the outside from one part of the house to the other.
Yeah.
These are some great tips that no matter what you're modeling, can really add a lot of interest. Just picture a city scene where all you do in your buildings is add that different color of background to your lighting. You would get a much different look with the windows in the city all lit up with no interior work at all. You add a whole new dimension to things. I think it's pretty obvious that we've got the right person doing accessories for us at Lionel.
Thank you.
So great job on everything. If folks have questions, again, feel free to plug them in there. Is there more you'd like to add, Megan, or should I show what I'm almost now ashamed to show?
No, I've seen yours, and I am so excited to learn how to achieve the effects that you achieved, because you gave me exactly what I asked for, which was the spooky house down the street that, I double dog dare you to go up to the witch's house and ring the doorbell type situation there. So I'm really excited to learn how you achieve that.
Okay, well, let me switch out our two product cameras here. There we go. And we'll start to look at that. My camera's a little closer, so we'll back up. Okay, so I attacked this as I normally do a modeling project, as a more of a traditional scale model railroader. And when you tell me haunted house, what I think is weathering. And so I dove right into my weathering bag of tricks and started having at it. And we'll do some of these things together here to show you how we age the walls. I focused really mostly on this side and the front, figuring that left me a few more bare walls to start with here for tonight. everything that I did, really I did with very simple materials and techniques again. Some of these we've talked about in past Workbench Wednesdays. Some we'll dive more deeply into in future episodes. But just a couple of small, simple hand tools that you probably already have, and a couple of mostly simple craft paints that you get at any place. So yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. We have one question there from Dave. I think this one was towards yours, Megan, on the freight on your the shutter here on the left side. We both did a little bit of work on the shutters. I really like the effect you got here on the second shutter in from the left, where you tore away at the bottom piece of it there and gave it a nice ragged look. And that looks really nice.
So, as Bob Ross says, there's, no mistakes, only happy little accidents. I had attempted I was going to pull all the shutters off. I was going to pull every single one off and do what you did there. Start, putting them on the side and stuff. But it was a little difficult. I had a hard time prying them off with the tools that I had at home, and tore into that one, and it looked good, so I kept it. I will say, with the Fraser house especially, you do get an extra little bag of shutters inside there with them. So, hack away at them if you want to. But it was a happy accident, but again, achieved a really cool effect.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you had trouble getting your shutters off, and the first one I tried, I had a little bit of difficulty with too. We used a good glue at the factory on these to hold everything in place, but you can do it. And the tool that I used was not your standard X-Acto knife with the so-called number 11 angle blade, but I use a chisel blade. This is an X-Acto number 17, or there are equivalents from other blade manufacturers, and this acts like a chisel, and it makes it easier to get in behind the details and work away at that glue and just sort of twist and pop a little bit. And then what I decided here on this last shutter was the first one I tried and gave me the most grief. And there was a nice big black spot underneath here, so I just tilted it and re-glued it and covered up the mess. Others where it came off a little bit more cleanly, I left them off or rearranged them as I saw fit. So including some down there on the first floor. So yeah, it takes a little bit of work, and some of that glue then also on these houses sort of attached from the shutter to the window frame as well. So you had to break a little bit of if not the glue, the paint masking even there on that. But it was very doable. And as Megan said, we both started out with a pre-assembled house on this. Some of the techniques that we do are easier if you're starting with a kit, because the pieces are already apart, and you can lay them flat on your workbench and do things. But if you built a kit earlier and you're not quite happy with it and you want to go back and make changes, this is proof that you can do it. Or you can start with a prefab building. Like Megan said, I wasn't really sure if I could handle the kit, but I had something good to start with, so I knew you could go from there. These prefab buildings are great for that. And it just presents a little bit more of a challenge sometimes getting into some of the nooks and crannies around the porch as you're doing weathering, but still very doable. So just because you've already finished a model or want to make some changes to it, you can definitely still do some of these things. But let's start with a few of the basic things that I did to this. And I'll start here on the side. You can see the first thing that I did was start to peel up some of the siding. And this is very easy to do on a wood kit, but you can still do it on a plastic kit as well. And again, we're going to use that chisel blade. I'm going to try and get myself in camera here and show this. You want to come in underneath the bottom of the wood slat and just rock it a little bit until you get that in there. If it chips off like that, no big deal. You've got some broken siding. But you can keep working that in. The trick is to try and keep your blade somewhat shallow. And I'm going to be honest, I'm probably going to screw a lot of these up because I'm working upside down and looking over the top of this instead of my normal way. But push in a little bit each way, spread it out as much as you can. And then as you get a longer piece spread, you can start to work that up and get that peeling away effect, and then go in a little deeper with the blade and peel a little bit more up. And just bit by bit, you work that and you'll get that peeled effect. You can see one up here above it. That's a little bit more done already over here. Yeah, working upside down like the weatherman here, trying to do this on a green screen. So that's a simple way to sort of age the wood a little bit. The other thing you can do is take any sort of rough object, some steel wool, a wire brush. I think I had a razor saw laying around, and just scrape it across the face of the wood to give it a little bit more of a grainy look. After hacking at the walls for a while, you want to start adding some color and some age to it. The first thing I did on this, because it's a plastic kit, is I sprayed the whole thing with some clear flat finish. And you can get hobby grade stuff like dull coat in the hobby store, or for a job like this, any spray can of clear flat finish is going to work for you. Sometimes the cheaper stuff actually works better. If I were doing this to a house I didn't want to make quite so weathered, I would have either taken out the window glass material from the inside or masked the windows off, because you will get a little bit of a faded effect from that flat finish on the windows. But this is a haunted house. I don't think anyone's cleaned the windows here for a while. So I was okay with that and just went straight at it with a can of paint. But the reason for the flat finish is not just to sort of dull down some of the plastic look, but it gives the model a little bit of tooth to it, so to speak, so that as you put on these washes, the paint or the ink has something to adhere to. So the next thing that I did was I took some gray paint, and I use a variety of these. I use whatever is on sale at Hobby Lobby or AC Moore or whatever, or Walmart or whatever store I'm wandering through at the time. Some people stick to one brand, others don't. Most of us, I think, in the hobby just buy whatever's cheap. These things cost anywhere from 30 cents to $1.50. Megan, you've probably got a rack full of craft paints at home too. And I just started with a basic gray and started chipping paint a little bit, doing a chip paint effect. And to do that, my favorite tool is a grout sponge. Okay, a simple tile grout sponge. And tear a little piece of that off. See, this one's been used a few times. As you use it, just tear it off and keep going. You want a nice irregular edge so that you don't get a pattern as you're doing this. And then I'm going to dip a little bit of this in the cup of paint that I've got here, where you could use a palette or whatnot. And because you don't need a whole lot of this, a little goes a long way. We're going to do something kind of like dry brushing. Before I apply this right onto the model, I'm going to rub off a lot of that paint. I'm going to blot it off. Scrap paper towel or whatnot works great. And then we'll start applying this along the model. Again, I'm sort of working upside down and backwards, but you get the idea. And you can go as heavy or as light as you want. You can do this in layers. You can build it up as much as you like. And what you'll start to get is the effect of the paint peeling away from the siding. So you're seeing this gray color as more as the old wood underneath. If you were starting from scratch, you could paint the building a wood color and then apply paint the same way. Just reverse this process and apply a white paint or whatever color you're painting your house. Apply that over the bare wood color. You'll get a very similar effect. But if you've already got a painted building, as you can see here, it actually works just as well. Sometimes even better doing it this way, because the paint, the gray paint now goes to the highest parts of the siding, which is where normally would be the more exposed and where the paint would be more likely to chip. So in some ways, this actually works better to paint it first and then chip away the paint by adding new paint. Once that was on there, I came through next with my alcohol wash, and this is just some rubbing alcohol with a little bit of India ink mixed in. And again, you find this at any craft or hobby store. A couple drops of ink into the alcohol. Everyone has their own mixture, and a lot of people will do a couple of different mixtures, a light and a heavy wash. This stuff's really easy to put on. It's a little more difficult to take off. So I like a lighter wash, and then if I want more layers, I just put on more paint. And now what we're going to do, this is very thin, so it's almost like putting on a stain. And we're just going to apply that over the wood. I typically, when I'm doing this, focus most of my weathering attention on the bottom of the structure, because if you think about it, that's where you're going to have the moisture is going to start at the top, but eventually it all runs down, and the foundation is going to catch some of that. If you're going to have rotted wood, it's going to typically start at the bottom and work its way up. I keep the weathering a little bit lighter up at the top under the eaves of the roof, because that's going to have more protection. On the front of the house, I did the second floor a lot heavier than I did the first floor, because you've got this roof overhead to help shield that from a lot of the weather. So just go over this bit by bit, as light or as heavy as you want. It's going to look a little bit darker when you start. Once it dries, it'll lighten up. So then you can come back through and apply a second coat if needed, or a third or fourth coat, and just keep going until you've built up to the effect that you like. It's really easy to do, and again, by doing it in layers, it's easy to stop when you think you're there. You don't go too far. Some other things I did easily enough. I took a pair of sprue cutters, but you could use a hobby knife. You could use just about anything here, because we're not going for precision. Cut out a few of the banisters, cut a few halfway and gave them sort of a broken look. Chopped up the bottom of the lattice work here under the porch, because you want that to look beat up. And that was just a simple matter of a couple of clips with the nippers, and that stuff falls right out. Really easy to do, really easy to weather up and give it that aged look. Some other colors I used, I did some light washes and splotches with a light green color. In fact, the color I used on this one was marsh green, to give it sort of a moldy or mossy look. You'll see that built up here a little bit more on the side. If I'm doing a model for my layout and I know which side is going to be the north side, I tend to focus on that. But for this one, I just went a little bit nuts and went all over it. For the windows, I did some strips of scale lumber, stained them a little bit, cut them to approximate length, and simply glued them in place. The sign is just like Megan did. Print out some things. You can find no trespassing signs, and lots of good signs online. Real easy Google search. Even I could figure that part out. And then they're easy to squares are easy. You don't even need to steal your wife's Cricut to do that. So did put some signs in there. Yeah, just some basic stuff to help things go along with it. Next steps will be for me finishing up the chimneys, finishing up a little more detail on the foundation, a little more variation here in the roof. Same way as I did with the siding, I picked a few shingles away to give it the look of a more worn roof. If I had a little more time, I probably would overlay this with some laser cut shingles and really go at it, but I think this worked well. And then probably we'll finish it all off with some basic pastels. Let me grab some here. You can get these at modeling stores as well. This is a weathering powder. You can also find at an art supply store a pack like this of soft pastels or chalks. And these work very well to give that final touch. And these have an advantage of being very flat and being somewhat sticky. So they lay on there very nice. You just want a dry brush. Either some people like a softer brush, some people like a firmer brush. It depends kind of where I want to get into with the chalk, how fine I go and soft I go, but we can just put a little bit of this here to the screen. I'll just do one little streak down the roof. It's probably a little heavier than I actually would have liked it, but we can soften it up. And we can apply things like that and give some streaks down the roof and add some texture and variety to things that way. The nice thing about these two, if you don't really like what you came up with a little bit of moisture, you can wipe them off. So if you're just learning how to do weathering and very nervous about screwing it up and getting it wrong, weathering chalks and pastels are a good way to start because they're very, very reversible, and not terribly expensive. The downside is they're also very difficult to affix. So you can clear coat over top, but once you do that, you end up washing away a lot of what you put on. So if it's a model you're going to handle a lot, I usually don't recommend using those, or using them very sparingly, and using them in places where you're not going to, or use them in such a way that when you do handle it, it's not so difficult to do that. We got a question online. Is there any train station for N scale? There are a lot of train stations available for N scale. We don't make any N scale at Lionel, but certainly there are lots of other companies that do. So take a look out there at your hobby shop, or go online and look for N scale station, and I'm sure you'll see a lot of different options come up depending on what type of station you're looking for. Everything from a small town station to a union station. And what we're showing here, the techniques we're showing you here, these work in any scale and gauge in any type of building. So if you wanted to make a station particular to your hometown, find something that's close and take some of these techniques and build from there. You can customize the model to get the look that you want. When you have some of these basic skills in your toolbox and you've got that confidence, it really opens up the world to you of modeling, because you're not limited to what any one particular manufacturer makes, and the world is your oyster. So those are the basics of weathering, some of the basic techniques here. I covered a lot of those really quickly. We've done some of them more extensively in the past in Workbench Wednesdays, if you look those up on YouTube, and we'll certainly be covering them again in future projects. But once you get some of those basic stippling and sponge painting techniques down, you'll find that adding peeling paint is not that much different than adding rust to metal siding, or adding chips on the side of a boxcar. It's the techniques that you have to get down, and then it's just a matter of picking the right colors and having some fun with it. So with that in mind, let's get Megan back up here front and center, because you've been listening to me for far too long. I'm going to hide. I can't hide my cam, unfortunately. Try and get us a little bit bigger. And let's leave Megan's up. Actually, you know what, Megan? I won't put you in front and center yet. We'll bring your house back up.
Oh, thank you.
So that people can look at that. And any parting thoughts or final things? We're at about the 8 o'clock hour here. So before I turn into a pumpkin, I wanted to give you a chance to offer any final thoughts.
I really enjoyed this again. It was a challenge for me, something I hadn't really done before. So I just encourage every one of you who haven't done anything like this before. It's fun to do and fun to learn and grow. And Workbench Wednesday, that's exactly what this is for, is for learning. And so again, I really enjoyed the challenge, and I think I'll probably continue doing some more add-ons to little houses here and there. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my love of Halloween with all of the trained and hobby enthusiasts out there.
Well, we appreciate it. David asks, what's next for you? I'm sure that this is your busy season all around, right? This is your passion outside of work with Halloween. Her house is decorated. Megan starts decorating her office cubicle for Halloween in August. Mm-hmm. And then it lasts till about Christmas, and then Sadie gets into the Christmas spirit, and we've got to swing
Very
everything
true.
over. So I know you've got a lot going on there, but I guarantee you, especially now that I've seen what you can do, this is not your last modeling project nor your last appearance on Workbench Wednesday. So,
Well, thank you.
And we may have to talk to some of your coworkers and see if we can twist their arms a little bit to have some more people give things a try for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun to do, and I promise you there will be some more Halloween product and catalogs to come. I never stop planning those. It's really fun to do.
So and you're definitely the right one for the job with everything you've got going here. I want to say a special thanks to Sadie, who's been behind the scenes tonight. Again, apologies for those who were waiting for us live at 7. We had some computer issues, and by we, I mean me. Clearly, I am the weak link in all of this, which is to be expected. But she helped us get things back up and running and has been here behind the scenes, helping to showcase some of the comments and make sure we didn't fall back off the rails again. So thank you, Sadie. We will be back on here in 2 weeks with the next Workbench Wednesday. And I'm not quite sure what the topic will be there yet. Might be starting a new kit. Next week, Lionel will be back on the road again. We will be at the Eastern Division of the Train Collectors Association's York Meet. It'll be our first show in well over a year. So Megan doesn't get to go, unfortunately. She'll be hard at work, and I'll be at the show having a lot of fun and eating good Pennsylvania food again. So very much looking forward to that. So if there's anybody on here who's headed to York, look forward to seeing you in person. Definitely stop by the Lionel booth and say hello. Then we'll be back the week after that. We'll have some more Workbench Wednesdays. Dave will probably be on sometime in the next week or two with a demos with Dave. And then we've got the Ryan and Dave show Halloween Spooktacular coming up on October 31st. And Megan will definitely have you back on there to show us what else you've come up with on your house between now and then.
Sounds good.
So look forward to seeing that. And Dave has dropped a few hints at his Halloween costume this year, but nothing that I care to share with anybody at this point. So we'll just wait for that and be surprised with all of you. So look very much forward to that. Keep in touch with Lionel over the coming months. We do have a lot of fun new announcements and things coming out as we get high into model train season. Things are really ramping up. So time to start getting out your layouts and setting things up. The haunted houses are perfect. It's a great excuse to start doing modeling a little bit early and then take down the Halloween decorations and start decorating the houses for Christmas. Maybe that'll be another theme in a month or two here for us. So thank you again, Megan.
Thank you.
I'll give you the final thought, and then we will pair out for the night.
Thanks, everyone. Happy Halloween.
Thank you all. Happy Halloween, and have a good night. Safe modeling.